Well, joining me here in studio is Mohamad Elmasry. He's a media studies professor at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Good to have you with us on the programme. We were talking about this, within the last 24 hours, that this ceasefire agreement is quite precarious. Any sort of derailment of it can happen in any way. We saw, technical difficulties for Hamas on Sunday, and now we saw a delay in Palestinian prisoners being released. They can be interpreted in different ways by either side, can't they? And this is where the grey area is in any sort of agreement.
Yeah, it is precarious, as you said. And also we have to remember that Israel has a history of violating ceasefire agreements, not just with Hamas, but also with other rivals in the region. So that's something to keep an eye on. It's possible that Israel could try to provoke Hamas, launch some sort of an attack. Claim that there was a violation by Hamas, and then reignite the war. We have to remember that we're here because there was pressure from Donald Trump, the incoming Trump administration. That's why we are at this point. It's not because Israel wanted this ceasefire, that they came here, they got to this point because of their desire to end the war. That's not the case at all. So, we have to keep a close eye on everything, certainly.
Be good to get your opinion on this, because we've been speaking to analysts in the lead up to the ceasefire, both here in the studio and remotely around the world. And each of them has said in turn that it's not just about the ceasefire of the next, 6 weeks. It's the day after, it's the month after, it's the year after. It's what happens after this and what relationship, if any, there can be in negotiations and peace talks for the future. I mean, how do you see what happens after the ceasefire period finishes? What comes next?
Yeah, it's really complicated. So, the hope, of course, is that we can get through phase one, because the real heavy lifting is in stage 2 and stage 3, where you have the withdrawals by the more substantive withdrawals of Israeli troops, and then the reconstruction of Gaza. And it remains to be seen whether Israel is going to allow all of that to take place. I thought it was interesting what Bezalel Smotrich said. He's the Israeli finance minister. He originally said he was going to resign if this ceasefire deal went through. But then he said he's not going to resign because Benjamin Netanyahu promised him that the war would continue and that Gaza would not be rebuilt and that they would prevent humanitarian aid from getting to the Palestinians. And so he stayed in the government. So that's the worry, that Israel is just going to use this period of time to get some of its captives back and then restart the war.
It is interesting that we saw Ben-Gvir, obviously another right-wing cabinet member, resign also on Sunday. Our analysts, like yourselves, I'm sure, would say it doesn't really factor into that equation, but he's sort of positioning himself to perhaps be the leader of that right-wing group that might face Netanyahu in a potential election. And as we go into the ceasefire phase, it all links in, doesn't it? Now the focus isn't on the war, is it? It's on Netanyahu and his court cases and whether he might be incarcerated, whether the government will fall, and whether there will be an Israeli general election.
Right, absolutely. And there's a lot of pressure on Netanyahu. If you look at the Israeli media, and I've been following some of the reports the last couple of days, he's actually getting a lot of heat. They're calling this a spectacular failure. By Israel's own admission, by its own standard, it has failed, at least to date, right? They said that they want to completely obliterate Hamas, eliminate Hamas. They talked about total victory, complete victory. Back in April, Netanyahu said we are one step away from eliminating Hamas. And then in June, he doubled down on that and said we're almost there. We've almost eliminated Hamas. And here he has to watch on the TV screens Hamas fighters dressed in their fatigues come out and escort these Israeli captives to their vehicle. He's watching now as Hamas will continue to govern Gaza and oversee, the security situation, the humanitarian aid situation, and all elements of this ceasefire. And just last week, Hamas killed 9 Israeli soldiers in the north. And so Hamas has not been eliminated. And this is very embarrassing for Netanyahu. And it's one of the reasons why he's getting all of this critical media coverage inside of Israel.
Interesting, certainly, to see what happens over the next few weeks. For the moment, Mohamad Elmasry, thank you.